Good afternoon. My name is Niko, host of the political radio show Mikasa Sukasa, and I urge you all to donate to our One Follow, $1 campaign, where we are raising money on our individual or independent media Patreon accounts because, well, we need to make a statement, and that statement is that we will not put up with the lies of mainstream media anymore because I am sick of it. I'm sure you all too. We need you all as independent journalists, and we know that you need and appreciate us as well. So, with that being said, I want to go ahead and jump into this interesting article. And I'm glad my good friend Mike Sainato wrote it. He wrote it on The Observer, and I'll post a link below. But it discusses an interesting conundrum that we find ourselves in. For those of you who consider yourselves former Bernie Sanders supporters, for those of you who consider yourselves Bernie Sanders supporters still. I am in between because I'm a little pissed at him for some things, but like I said, we'll figure that out, and time will tell how, if what I'm thinking is going on is right. But in Vermont, seems like Bernie Sanders has a supporter. And although we thought it would be primarily Republicans doing the damage, because as you know, the Republicans have fabricated some investigation that actually isn't a thing, and they've been going hard to try to get him out of office. And we all know that. I kind of figured that once Bernie Sanders came up in 2018, once his election came up in 2018, they were going to go hard to get him out. Both parties, because he's been nothing but a thorn in their sides. But it wasn't. It's not a Republican that is seemingly trying to get him out. It is actually a Democrat. And most people would be like, well, of course, why wouldn't they run? They deserve their chance to run as much as anybody else. And I totally agree with you. But it's the circumstance, ladies and gentlemen. It's the circumstance. So, this young man, Svistovsky, he's about 59 years old, was recruited by Democrats USA, which is a group, to run against Bernie Sanders specifically. Now, that's a little peculiar, right? Let me tell you why it's a little peculiar. So this guy is an ardent Clinton supporter. In fact, that is how he made his name, from being ridiculously outspoken about how much Bernie Sanders has been divisive. Now, it's peculiar to me because if you don't know by now, the Democratic Party doesn't move in factions per se. Yeah, they do have factions, but the factions all need to kind of unify behind the main message and the main goal. And if it is obvious to some people by now, the main goal is to get Bernie Sanders the hell out. Like they think that Trump is the easy person and that Bernie is the difficult one. And that's true. There's a reason for that. Bernie Sanders won his last election by like 70% of the vote. In the Democratic primary, he won his election by 86% over Hillary Clinton. I don't think that Svistovsky has a chance in hell, a snowball chance in hell, a snowflake's chance in hell. Hell, I just don't think it's a fair race at all. But what's more interesting to me is that his rhetoric, the type of rhetoric he's using, seems to be indicative of someone who doesn't want the party to unify with Bernie, but on the total opposite side of that fence. Now, there are many who seem to believe that, a lot of contrarian or contradicting thought processes going on against some people who are simply angry at Bernie. Like I said, I totally understand why you would be. They're saying that Bernie's a sheepdog, and then they say, oh, the Democratic Party is going to screw him again, and it doesn't make sense, because if he was a sheepdog, ladies and gentlemen, once again, for those of you who don't know what sheepdogs do, sheepdogs are Cory Bookers, they're your Barack Obamas, they're your Elizabeth Warrens, those who have a positive image, usually a minority or someone who's like considered more leftist than usual in the Democratic Party. They maintain a positive image, and the Democratic Party makes sure that they do that, and that's the person they throw out front when they want to reel in progressives, even though they actually don't intend on passing any of those policies. Now, what you don't do to your sheepdogs, one, is write ridiculously slanderous articles. You don't smear them endlessly. You don't attack them. And you don't run a candidate against them. So as much as you all want to be upset at Bernie Sanders himself, Once again, I understand that because I have my gripes with him as well. Let's be very clear. He is not a sheepdog. He is not hurting anyone. If he was hurting people, he wouldn't, if he was hurting people into the Democratic Party particularly, one, he wouldn't allow our revolution to be endorsing, and successfully so, because there's already been one Green Party candidate that they've endorsed that has won in office, and they have a few more that are running. So he wouldn't allow them to endorse third-party candidates. That's one thing. Two, he wouldn't be introducing single-payer legislation knowing it directly contradicts the marching orders of the lobbyists and the pharmaceutical companies want the Democratic Party to do, which is why they don't ever bring up single-payer. Only Bernie Sanders does. And that was announced that he's introducing it. And May 27th, I believe, is when he announced it. So that's two things. Three, you don't slander. Once again, you don't slander. And you don't run candidates against your sheepdogs. You didn't see them go out and run a candidate against Elizabeth Warren. You don't see them go out and run a candidate against Cory Booker. This is actually a pattern we've been seeing, that they're not just, this isn't, for those of you who are hearing about this for the first time, this is only the first time that we've seen it used against Bernie Sanders. However, this has been happening all across the country, and it's something that I'm actually going to do another video about a little bit later on. But it's a pattern. Them attack. They've been running candidates. Remember, I told you what it's happened to Elijah Woods. It's happened to Stephanie Myers. It's happening. It's happening in Michigan right now. It's happening in another area that I can't quite I can't wrap my brain around it right now. But there's another area that's happening in as well. But we need to understand that just because we're mad at someone, because we don't like the way they're acting, that doesn't necessarily make them a sheepdog for the party. It either means, one, they have a strategy that we don't understand, or two, you can hate them or dislike them or their policies or their rhetoric for a particular reason. But you criticize the policies, you criticize the rhetoric. When a person has a history of literally being arrested for black people, which none of the other Democrats have that, outside of maybe John Lewis, which I'm not really fond of him either. But, you know, when somebody has dedicated their life to human rights activism and civil rights activism, when someone has made their state from a Republican, you know, just hellhole to a progressive, you know, just the city that he used to be the mayor of is like 98% renewable energy now. This is a man who took women from the United States across the border to Canada to get cheaper medication for them and negotiate on their behalf. The dude, he isn't an evil guy. He just does things that I don't like. And just because, and people want me to hate him or Jill Stein or anybody for that matter. There's a couple people I hate, Hillary Clinton being one of them. But for the most part, I don't hate anyone in politics. It's not my job. My job is to report unbiasedly and objectively. And if someone's being ridiculous when it comes to a person, then I will call that out. And if Bernie Sanders says something I don't like, I will call that out as well. But you don't run candidates against sheepdogs. Your sheepdogs are your prized possessions if you're the Democrats. This is fact. Do your history. Stop just blindly listening to people and actually go look through the history. I would say that even Al Gore, to a degree, was a sheepdog, but then he separated himself from the party. Totally. Got away from party politics. But it's just, Michelle Obama is actually another example of a sheepdog, unfortunately. So those are examples of your sheepdogs. The untouchables, if you will. That's what I consider a sheepdog. A sheepdog has to remain untouchable because of what they mean to the success of the party. Bernie Sanders is not that. They're working day in and day out to destroy him. Blaming mass murderers on him. Saying that single payers, and you know, even Obama came out and said that it was Bernie Sanders and his supporters that undermined the Affordable Health Care Act. And it's like, nah, that was Affordable Health Care Act that came out and undermined the Affordable Health Care Act. You let the lobbyists take over. You let the Republicans get their way. And now you have certain states where your Affordable Health Care Act doesn't do anything for them. So, with that being said, thank you all so much for watching. Please contribute to our One Follow, $1 campaign. Leave your comments, thoughts below. Like and subscribe. And always remember, find your balance. Peace.